How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another spoiler review of Ahsoka, episode 3. This is episode 3, and it is definitely short. I don't love that. Overall, I dug the episode, but there's a few things. I like this one the least out of the 3 so far, but I still think it's a pretty good episode because what I was hoping it was going to do, which it did, and will push back against anybody who says that it's a filler, this definitely moved the story forward. Now, before we even get there, hit that button. Will you show a little, class? Just an ounce. That's all we're asking for. 90,000 people so far. We're trying to get to 100. So, you're brand new to this channel, hit that button. We do spoiler reviews, long form, shorts, all of it. But we need you guys to be part of it. So hit that button and show a little. Okay, so like I said, it furthered the plot for me, and there were a few things I didn't like. And one of the main things I didn't like that I was worried about when they released these run times. 32 minutes, really, after credits and after the end credits and the beginning previously on, it comes out to like 32 minutes. And when you see a scene like the one with Hera and Mon Mothma and the senators, you're like, this is why the show should be longer. It's scenes like this that help set up, because what they did do, what I'll give them credit for in 32 minutes is they established a lot, they got a lot done, and they had a good balance between dialogue, character development, introducing characters, introducing new themes, and balancing it with good action. Some questionable action, but for the most part, really good action. And I really dug it. But I was like, can you imagine what you would have done with 45 minutes? These things should be at a minimum 45. 45 and over. Like House of the Dragon, I think clocks in at like 50 minutes each episode. That's it. You get so much. And there's so much deep story already. There's so many things going on here that I thought were great. It's funny because I had a friend of mine who was talking about the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka and didn't like it because they thought that the first 2 episodes were too Rebel-based, and that if you didn't figure out what was going on with Rebels, if you didn't know what was going on, then it was too confusing and they asked you to do too much. And then my same friend reached out and said, that episode of Ahsoka was really good. And I was like, to me, this one had way more Rebel stuff and things that you definitely wouldn't have picked up inside of. You wouldn't be confused, but I think that you wouldn't have picked it up. Like, for example, Jason Solo, it shows you the EU. Jason Sindala, when Hera's kid shows up, that's something that happens at the very end of Rebels when they show that it's Kanan's kid, and he shows up in this episode. Now, Rebels fans and other people, oh, there he is. I don't think it's confusing for non-Rebels fans. I think it just is more of like, oh, I guess Hera has a kid. We knew she had a kid. They just are finding out for the first time that she has a kid, and they don't know the backstory. They don't know who the dad is. They don't know any of that. Again, not confusing. The space whales, the Purgles, show up, and they've been teased. They got teased in Mandalorian Season 3. They got teased briefly when Balin was looking up at the sky. But now they show up, and now it's more like, oh, there they are. They're the space whales. And for the first time, I remember when we were covering Rebels back in the day, and the Purgles, the space whales, showed up for the first time, everyone was losing their mind. Space whales? They have space whales now in Star Wars? And it was this whole thing. This is the first time that people are seeing the Purgles or space whales that have never watched Rebels. So there's tons of stuff, mentions of Ezra in this and how he was lost with Thrawn, and I thought there was way more references, and I didn't have an issue with it, but way more references to Rebels and asking you to, I guess, kind of benefit more if you knew than if you didn't. So it was interesting that my friend reached out and said that, because I was like, you just never know. But they really liked this episode. And I thought the episode was pretty good, but it starts out right where we left off, and Sabine and Ahsoka are on the way to go find out what the hell is going on, and they're waiting for Hera to give them some backup so they can go and they can find the location of Thrawn and Ezra and really figure it out, right? And they're with Hu Yang and they're training, and right away we see Hu Yang, and Hu Yang's a great droid, and again, David Tennant is doing an incredible job of having like this kind of Jedi droid working with Sabine. And I like the fact that they haven't already given Sabine all these Force powers, and she's not so in tune with the Force. She's trying to figure out how to do it in the same way. This was about a much of an homage to Episode 4 as you're going to get with the training, and she's trying to figure out. She's trying to tap into it, and Ahsoka even says to her, like, look, fighting with the sword and using all that Mandalorian stuff, it's great, but it's not going to help as far as balancing out the Force. And this opening sequence is really good. It had like a Morpheus Neo feel to it also. And what Ahsoka does really well is she gives the lessons of the Force, and she's very zen now. And some people have been having an issue with Ahsoka, that she's more like one note than she used to be. She's pretty one note in the Rebel series because she's been down. She's been in the shits, right? So it's not like back in the day when she was super bubbly and joking around all the time. She's gone through a lot of stuff. So this is a very different Ahsoka. So I don't mind it at all. And she's kind of more of the zen. Even though she doesn't consider herself a Jedi, I mean, she is, and she's teaching her Padawan kind of how to do it. What I hope happens, and I know that it won't, because it's just this one I have less of a problem with if they do the cliche stuff. But I would like it to be like, look, she tried to tap into the Force. She tried to do it. She tries so many different times to connect with the Force itself. And Ahsoka tells her, she's like, look, everybody has the Force in them. It's whether or not there's certain skill. And then the great bit with Hu Yang when he's like, I was just telling her the truth. She's terrible. She's a great fighter. I would love it if they just made her that. She tried to tap into it. She can't tap into the Force. She tried. She's a great sword fighter. She does everything. She's going to probably, she'll be able to connect more with the Mandalorians, and she's a badass, and she can do a lot of stuff that other people can't do, and she's great with tech. She can't tap into the Force. She tried. She tried everything. It just didn't work. Usually what always happens in every movie and every story ever is that the hero can't do it, they can't do it, they can't do it, they can't do it, and then finally, when they really need to do it, they do it. It'd be great if one time it just didn't happen. She just can't tap into it because she's trying, and she's trying a lot. And this scene, and I also like this, she's frustrated, but she's not like that kind of, we've seen it, whether it was Anakin or whoever, these kind of whiny characters that you get to a place where they're just a lot of people with, I can do this, I can do this, I can do it. How Luke did it, and how and I liked when those guys did it, but it was, we've just done it already. So she's frustrated, but she's not like pissy, and she's not getting mad at Ahsoka. She's just figuring it out. And Hu Yang's just kind of telling her, like, look, this is how it is, and this is how the training is. And then they have this great scene that this is where, to me, was the Morpheus and Neo scene with the Obi-Wan homage of put this thing on. She even says that, how am I supposed to fight if I can't see? And you have this really, and again, this is where I thought she was going to get frustrated and throw her hand down, but it's not. It's a very old school kind of kung fu movie scene here, and she's just kind of tapping her on the shoulder, and there's this battle, and finally, she does what she can do, and then Ahsoka knocks her on the floor, but she's giving her lessons the whole time, and then we get to the main title, right? And then this is the stuff, this is probably my favorite part of the whole show right here, because it had heavy dialogue, it had a lot of story pushing, and it had emotion in it. And this is where the New Republic, and it shows the politics and all that, and the fleet is gathering, and Hera's got a meeting, and they said, listen, Mon Mothma's in there, which is good news, but doucheface McGillicuddy's in there too, and clearly you guys don't get along. So we're like, okay, well, who's doucheface McGillicuddy? We're going to find that out soon. And they're all waiting to hear, and she's asking, she goes, listen, I need the fleet. I think we found Thrawn. And they're like, okay, you found Thrawn? Sure you did. And although doucheface McGillicuddy was the one who's really saying that, the other one's like, really, Thrawn, how do you know? And then I love that because it does play to make sense, where they're like, well, you said that Ezra disappeared with him, and isn't this the case that you're using Thrawn as an excuse to find Ezra? And they give the props to Ezra, even doucheface, he gives the props to Ezra, but he's like, let's call this what it is. And I love that scene where she's like, let me ask you a question. You ever fight in the war? And she just and she's like, just waiting to see who came on top, huh? And Hera doesn't back down. And they have a great moment with Mon Mothma. Great to see Genevieve O'Reilly back once again, especially after seeing kind of where she progresses from Andor all the way to here. Now she's kind of running the shop. And it's just like, okay, we're going to talk about it. And they ultimately say, no, this guy was great too. The actor that's playing doucheface, he was great. And there's this beef that the two of them have, and then whoever this guy is, it's one of the guys at the Trade Federation, not the Trade Federation, but whatever the guys. I remember one of these guys being in the prequels. I wonder if it's the same person. I don't know. But then this is when Jason shows up. He's like, get out there. she gets out there and she's like, yeah, you knew it. You just felt them going, well, that went well. And it ultimately leads to them not getting the Republic backing, which kind of puts our heroes in all on their own in their peril in this kind of lost universe or lost galaxy, if you will. But it does set up, and I loved the scene because it just set up, it gave you so much in that 2 or 3 minute scene. It gave you so much. It gave you the drive behind Hera, the emotion that all of them have to find Ezra back, the true feeling that she really wants to get Thrawn, that she's trying to prevent a war, that she does have a problem, even though she's trying to play inside of the system and be the general and do what she's supposed to do. She still has a problem with the politics. She still has a problem with the fact that she's talking about the Empire and saying there are Empire loyalists out there and they are screaming, long live the Empire and all those things. And these people aren't taking it serious. And it's like, you can ultimately see they're building to why this new Republic fell and that the Resistance had to take over. And then, obviously the First Order took power, and they're building towards that. At least that's what it seems like, because every government doesn't mean just because the good guys won, good guys get put back in the places of power. You're going to have this struggle for power every single time, and it's always been, Star Wars has always been a mirror of government and a mirror of how power corrupts and all that stuff. So I thought it was a fascinating conversation. I thought it really drove the plot, and it really also set up that Mon Mothma's thing, and it also shows that I don't think, and I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to figure out when, I don't remember when it was in Bloodline, the Bloodline storyline. Mon Mothma ran the shop for a while, and then she quit. But Filoni's never going to pay attention to any of the books, so it really doesn't matter when that was. But the question has always been, for Rebels fans anyway, is Jason going to show up? They set up that Hera has a kid. She had it with Kanan. She had it with a Jedi. Where is this kid? And he shows up, green hair and all, which is somewhat silly, but I don't mind it. It was the same way it was set up in the show. He's got human form but green hair. Okay, fine. He shows up with Chopper. He's been hanging with Chopper, and I wonder, because he is, so for people to know, it's not Jason Jason, it's Jacen, and that's an homage once again to the legendary, or legacy rather. What's it? Legends, right? It's Legends now. The Legends books from the old school Jason Solo, who is essentially the Ben Solo, and I think Jason is the one who goes bad in the in the novels, and I wonder if they're going to do the same thing with this kid, right? Like, are they starting to set it up because he says he wants to be a Jedi, he wants to do the stuff with the Force, he wants to be able to be trained, and what are they going to do with him? And the fact that we know that the Inquisitors, and we know that the remnants of the Empire, we know that they want Force-sensitive kids, we know that they want all these things. Are they going to try to get him? I don't think this is the last we've seen of Jason, obviously. And it was good to see him in live action. I thought the kid did a great job, too, kind of portraying who he was, and it establishes to everybody, Rebels fans and non-Rebels fans, Hera's a mom. She cares very much about her kid. Chopper is just chilling with the kid, and that's it. Kanan's kid lives on. Kanan lives on, and you see that the mama bear is going to be fighting for both, trying to find her pal and trying to protect her kid, it looks like. So when we jump back to the ship, we see, this is more so that conversation of using the Force, tapping into the Force. Not everybody can do it. It lives in all of us, and I thought this is again Filoni at work, right? And this is Filoni making true to the philosophies that George Lucas put together, and continuing George Lucas's lore, and continuing all the things that George Lucas wanted to do, and showing that, because people were mad at first when they said that everyone can use the Force, and Ahsoka just says that everybody has the Force, not everybody can use the Force, right? And that's, I guess, the shape of the midichlorians. They don't mention midichlorians, they don't mention any of that, but it's essentially what it is. It's the fact that the Force lives in all of us, and talent comes into it, and this is why I do say that, for as short as this show was, the scenes and the dialogue that they had inside of it really showed you a little bit more to the balance of it, the teacher that Ahsoka has become, the student that Sabine is learning to be, the stuff going on with the New Republic, and this is just a great conversation. Then you see she just uses the Force, she brings it over to her, and how fun of a scene must that have been for Rosario Dawson also. But then Huyang and Ahsoka had this great conversation where she's like, "You really, you had to tell the truth here, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, I had to do this." She wouldn't have been chosen. She doesn't have the skills for it. And this is why I hope there's 3 cliches that I don't want to happen in this show. This one is the least, because I think this one's inevitable, because they set it up to where she's training and they probably feel like people will be let down if she can't use the Force. So I understand that they're not going to do that, but I'd love to see it where they're just like, no, she just can't. She tried to do everything that she could, but she can't do it. She's going to go by her other skills, and she's going to do what she's been taught by Ahsoka, but she just can't tap into the Force, but she's become a better warrior for it. Not going to happen. She's going to use the Force eventually. We know this. The other one that we'll talk about as we start to get into these theories and stuff too is the Modak or whatever, the Inquisitor. If it's Ezra, I think everybody should shut the television off at the same time. What a stupid, dumb, nonsensical choice that would be. It would make no sense at all, no matter how they try to do it. Well, yeah, here's the deal. The reason I bring this up is because there's so many people who think that Ezra is this Inquisitor. Why? What do they need this map for? What do they need all this stuff? If they were able to convert Ezra into an evil being, hey, before we go hunt these people and go looking for this map, you were just with him. Any idea which planet he was on? Can you help us out? Great, thanks. Let's go get him. Like, why? Why did he turn evil? Why did he? And they also said that this Modak has been fighting whatever his name is. I don't care. The Inquisitor. You know what I'm talking about. If he was evil, and he was the one who was going after Jedi during the war and all that too. That's what it says on Wikipedia, that he's been hunting Jedi for a bit too. Again, doesn't match up because Ezra was around back then. The other thing is the cliche nonsense of turning him bad again. Why does everyone why do you need to turn this guy bad? Why do you need to turn Ezra bad? Let him fight with his peeps. Why do you need to turn bad? Because he's been hanging out with Thrawn. So all 4 seasons or 5 seasons, whatever it was of Rebels, he had this guy like teetering, and we all thought he was going to change with Maul and all that, and it would have made sense back then. And now, yeah, let's just do it because we have our hero leads, so it's fine. Nobody really knows who Ezra is. Let's turn him bad, and it'll be heartbreaking. It won't. It'll be stupid, and it'll make no sense on both sides. Whether they find him and he's evil, or whether he's the Inquisitor, which would be would be completely ridiculous. The other one that I don't mind is the Barriss Offee one, but I don't know. I don't know how tall she was, because this guy's pretty tall. The other theory that I also like is the introduction to bring Starkiller, Sam Witwer, finally into live action. Sam Witwer had some additional voices in 1 and 2, and if it was Starkiller, great. The one that I like the most, even though I don't love the way they did it with the Palpatine angle and all that with Rey, I didn't love the idea of Rey just being anybody. I thought that they should have linked it in somehow because they didn't have enough links to the original trilogy or the links to Star Wars in general. Still think Obi-Wan would have made more sense, especially with his relationship with Satine and the lineage that they could have done there. But I did think that they should have. I didn't like the nobody angle. The nobody angle here makes sense. This guy, who is this guy? If he just turns out he's one of these Jedi that went rogue, or he's somebody else, or it's a side character or something along those lines, or he's just nobody. Be fine. I think that'd be fine. The other cliche that I hope that they don't do, that you can see it coming a mile away, is turning the apprentice, I forget her name, Balin's apprentice. If they turn her good, just keep her bad. She's like the Vader of this series. She's flying around, she's chasing everybody down, she's trying to kill everybody. Don't have her some epiphany and she turns good, like Kylo and Reva and Vader. And Vader was the one. Vader was the one who was perfect. That's it. Vader's good. That's it. We got it. And everybody turns good. Everybody turns good. We don't need it. No, it's not wrestling. We don't need heel turns and face turns all the time. Just let them be good guys and bad guys. That's it. We're good. So I hope that they stay away from that. But we'll see. Either way, great conversation there to where she's patient with her. There's more of this relationship that is gathering. And Sabine's trying. She's trying to use the Force, and even when they have this whole moment here, and she's like, all right, you win this round. And then she's got to get herself up to the cockpit because this is when they find out, yeah, I got bad news for you. I made my pitch, and we got nothing. So Mon Mothma couldn't do anything. We tried. So you're on your own. And it's like, okay, so what is Hera going to do in that meantime to try to get them the support that they need? Because she can't just hang back. As they make it through, then they know there's some shit coming. And this battle starts to come from Morgan's peeps, and they're trying to guard the station. And they did a Death Star without doing a Death Star. You know what I mean? Like it's a big old machinery. It's machinery that again furthers the plot because it's this hyperspace thing that's going to take them to, that's going to be able to power it up. It should be strong enough to get them to another galaxy, and then they're going to be able to find Thrawn. They're going to be able to find, Ezra. I guess they're going to be able to do exactly what they wanted to do, and it's this big piece of equipment. It's not going to blow up a whole planet. It doesn't need the whole fleet to come after them. It's just a piece of equipment that they're going to use that they've been trying to power up, and I love that. I love that aspect of it. I thought that works really good, and again, furthers what we're trying to do here. And you have there's a lot of homages to Episode 4 here as she gets back, and I like the little callback. She's like, "Oh, you changed all my settings." She's like, "Yeah, I kind of had to." And they show real quick. There's not this kind of like, "Oh my God, just get on the same page already. This is so annoying. I don't trust you. You're not ready yet." But she's like, Ahsoka she stops for a second. She's like, "Okay, tell me what you need me to do." And she's like, "You follow my lead?" She's like, "I'll follow your lead." She's like, "Dive." And it just go right into it. One of the benefits, I guess, of having the shorter thing, but it's like right into it. You don't have to like get into these moments of like, just trust me. You don't trust me? It's like, come on, you know she's going to. And they don't do that. And I love that about it. I thought it worked really well. And they have this battle, like I said, very reminiscent to Episode 4. And I love every time they use the old school kind of 70s equipment. And there's this little space battle happening throughout it. And she's got to dive. She's got to use those moments. She takes a few of them out. Ahsoka trusts in her. And the music in it, again, Kevin Kiner's just doing incredible stuff throughout it. And this felt just very Star Wars, where they're going through, they're getting closer and closer. But as they get to this system, this is when they see the machinery, and this is when they figure out that, they have this hyper equipment, and it's hovering above this planet. They don't know what to do, and then the ship gets screwed. Morgan is just sitting there waiting, hovering over this planet, and I love that they've kind of set up this entire base, the big lasers, kind of the ultra power lasers, whatever she calls it out, and it messes up the system, and it kind of freezes them out, and Hu Yang goes down. And I love this scene. Finally, it puts our heroes in danger and they're trying to fly through as much as they can. And I love this thing. There's kind of just coaxing along here. All the different, and this, again, the way that this show looks, a lot of times in a lot of these Star Wars shows recently, some of the stuff feels out of place. Like sometimes it feels like there's creatures that look like they're from Star Trek, and there's ships and equipment that looks like it's from like Spy Kids or other things, or Blade Runner. And although I like the way the Blade Runner kind of scene in the beginning of Andor looked, but the consistent feel of Star Wars just hasn't really been there. Sometimes you look at it and you see a droid, and they don't throw the alien language or the droid language on it, or you have an alien and it's talking like they're from Boston. And then you get something like this, where this is like, you look at it and right away, if I showed someone a picture of this, what show do you think this is from? Immediately, Star Wars. And I love that about it. And I think that it fits. I don't feel none of it really feels out of place. And they're putting the money into the budget because you can see they're really paying attention to these graphics. But this thing is coaxing along, and it's just kind of frozen out, and they have to rely on. And I love this scene, by the way, where Sabine is like, "I want to help Hu Yang." She's like, "There's nothing that we can do for him, especially if we're both dead. So how about you help me out?" And they start floating through, and they're starting to send them in there and blast these humps while Sabine is using her talents to try to get it back together, but she's going to need some time. Now, this is the scene I didn't love. It wasn't as bad as Leia Poppins, but it was close. Because it just... And I saw somebody go, because I was talking about the physics of it, the gravity, like, they have space whales. You talking about physics? Space whales? It's like, yeah, but you still got to follow rules, because the rules of the space whales have always been the same. They're flying around, and they're out there in space, and that's what they do. These particular whales, that they're able to do that. We still have the rules of space, where with gravity, and I don't. She's got the space suit on, so it's not Leia Poppins. That's why it didn't bother me with the Leia Poppins stuff. She's got to be able to breathe, and this is pretty cool where she's fighting them down. But the question is, how is she be able to move as fast? And people are always going to say, well, the Force. I mean, sure, but she's like this part. She flips over, and later when she flips over and slashes, she floats out into space, but this time she floats and she lands perfectly. I just was like, it was just a little bit like a, I don't know. I'm not. It took me out of it because maybe like right away if you get out there and you do the quick slash. Because and does everybody know how to fly ships? It's like I remember when it was special to be a pilot. Like, everybody knows how to fly ships. So she's able to slash. She slashes the thing, and then I did like the idea. Okay, because I was like, okay, she's just gonna be totally fine, but she's floating around. This was a good because. Had this moment not happened, I would have really disliked this scene. But the fact that it did, and she finally couldn't hold the gravity of it, and she's floating around in space, she's got to hold herself, and Sabine's got to pick her up, get her back in the ship. It's a cool little moment, and then they ultimately have to get themselves to this planet. And they do, and I absolutely love the way that the Purgles look. I love the way the Space Wolves look. Because, like, oh, we're picking up some ships. Like, I don't think those are ships. What's that? And then we got our first real glimpse of the Space Whales, and that's why they're hanging around this planet. They're using the powers. They're doing all that. And Hu Yang is out right now. He's sleeping, because he always wanted to see them. He always knew about them. He brings it up later. But again, space battle. People are coming after him. We get to really hear Morak or Modoc, whatever the frick his name is. You guys can tell me in the comments. I don't care. Inquisitor face, and he's do your research. No. I'll watch another channel. They do their research. I don't care. It's Inquisitor face, and there he is, and he's got a cool voice. No, she's going down the ring. So, and they, eventually they're able to lose him. And it's good battle again, very Star Wars-esque. And this is what I was talking about with the balance of dialogue, the balance of story, the balance of characters, and the balance of action. And albeit in a 32-minute episode, I thought it was paced pretty well. And they were able to lose him. And this kind of reminded me of that planet. I don't remember what that was. What was the planet that they were on? And I forget the. What was the one in Force Awakens that the Starkiller base is on? You tell me. Again, I'm not in Star Wars trivia, and but it reminds me of that planet where when they finally zoom in, when they come into it, and Finn and Han and Chewie, they're going into those trees. Remind me of the same planet. It's got the same forest and all that. And while they're there, and they're sitting there on the planet, and everything's shut down, they're talking about the last time they saw those Purgles and the last time they saw the Wells, and again reminiscing through Ezra, and I think doing a good job once again of letting the Rebels fans know, hey, you guys remember that big journey we took? And then brand new people, hey, this is really this. We have seen these things before, and it's connected to all this stuff with Thrawn and Ezra. And I bring up that same point I did last week for people who are like, oh, they bring up Purgles and these things, and they bring up this guy Ezra. I don't know who Ezra is, and I don't know who it is. Did you know who, what the Clone Wars were in Episode 4? Did you know who Darth Vader was? But a young Jedi by the name of Darth Vader did this and this and this. You didn't know any of this. The Jedi they did this, and the Jedi were around for thousands of years, and there's all this history, and you didn't know shit. And so, if you read if you read a novel and before the thing came out, or you read the comic book before the movie came out, maybe you knew a little bit of some of the history, but you didn't. And it's just because later on in life you knew a little bit more about it, and they're so iconic now. But I think it's doing a good job. I really do think it's doing a pretty good job of setting all this stuff up. So then anti-gravity Ahsoka and Sabine have their conversation once again. They fly a little lower, and they land on this planet, and they decide, all right, let's turn this jerk off back on. I actually really like him. I think he's great. And this is when he has the conversation where they talk about the things that have happened with the Space Wells in the past, and the things what they're able to do, and how it's possible for something like that space station to travel through different galaxies, especially using the energy of the Purgles and all that. So playing into the story fairly well. And then you got Sam Witwer looking at the trying to figure out where they are, and the search is on. And this is what again, this is that scene where they're just kind of breaking down this, like they're playing the cat and mouse game. And then you end with Baylan, and Baylan's just like, all right, we know that they're hiding. Find them. Let's figure it out. And we have our episode. So, like I said, short episode, quick appearance from Baylan. With 12 to 15 more minutes, this episode could have been superb, but it was good, and it furthered it. So as we get closer and closer to episode, I think it's 8 episodes total, it does feel still, at least 3 episodes in, it does feel very movie-esque. Like there's a story that they know that they want to tell from 1 up until 8. Mandalorian Season 3 didn't feel that way. There are a couple other shows that didn't feel that way. This show feels that way. Will it stay consistent? We'll see. One of the things I will say is that some of the things you can't get away with in animation was something like that space scene. I think there was some in animation you could probably make that work and it comes off less goofy. But I could be wrong. I could be talking about this scene thinking that it was super goofy and it didn't work, and all you guys thought it was great and that it worked out perfectly and that you didn't mind it. So what do I know? I'm just saying, for me, when I was watching, it was the only time out of the 3 episodes that I've watched so far, I'm like, I don't know if we needed this. It probably could have been more effective without her hopping around in space, or done it differently. Where she's like, I'm like, why isn't she floating off into space? And then she does the same thing again, and now she is floating off into space. Well, because she used the Force. It's the cop-out. But it's such a minor gripe between that. My 2 biggest gripes were, anti-gravity Ahsoka and the short episode. But what about you guys? What do you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Please comment and tell me what you thought. I'd love to get your opinion. And if you're able to, show a little class. Hit that button. 100,000. That's what we're going for here. We're at 90 right now. We hit 90. And we did it because of you guys. So help us out. Hit that button. Happy to have you on board. Thanks for joining us, as always. And we'll see you on the flip side. Peace out.